Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. Every week we work to bring you people who have wonderful insights on creative ways to do service above self. That is the theme of Rotary, and the themes of our club, the extra focuses we have in our club, are entrepreneurship, education, and innovation. You're going to get a little of all of that today when one of our own members talks to us about understanding one's relationship with money. Our speaker today is Shags Shagrin. And Shags and I were both members of the Rotary eClub of the Southwest USA and part of the team of 7 of us that left that club in order to help start the eClub of Silicon Valley. I have known Shags for some years. I have enjoyed his wit, as it never seems to quite slow down. I have enjoyed his paella because he has paella skills that many in Italy can only dream of. And of course, everybody in the club loves Shags' best friend and faithful sidekick, Truffle, who is a four-legged, wonderful being who will probably not be helping with today's session. However, with that, I'd like to say that that Shags has a long history with Rotary. You may remember a 53-year stretch, as he would claim it, and given that he started at age 3, I believe it was. But today you're going to hear about the work he does. This is his vocational talk, and we are really excited to have talking to us about ideas related to finances and how we see our finances, Mr. Shags Shagrin. Yay!
Yay! I'll work my own sound effects.
Awesome.
Thanks, Rushton, and I'm glad to see that Ryan could join us. And feel free to stay on because I'd like this to be somewhat interactive. This is really insight into what's under the hood in our brain about money, and it's something that's very important because it's a core survival tool, and we're unique as human beings in that we are the only creatures that have to pay to live on Earth. So with that in mind, just understand that there can be things going on that keep us from really doing what it is we want to do or feeling comfortable with all the things that we have to do around money, and there are many reasons for that. This is going to be a very high-level overview, and this is just a shot from my website talking about just a little bit about what I do, and that is helping people to identify and eliminate obstacles that keep you from being where you want to be with respect to your money life. And it's whether you're uncomfortable having a lot of money or more money than you may have been used to, or you're challenged by under-earning. It could be that there's something going on in your life that is putting demands on you that you didn't expect, and it's causing a kink in your financial plan. You want to know how to deal with that. It could be that your discussions with money and your partner are not going well. So, as I said, it's a high-level overview, and I'm going to just skim through this slide deck because what's more important is that this will be not only on my website, probably also on the Rotary website, and you'll also see the text of what I prepared for this in a formal presentation to the Rotary eClub of the Southwest. And that was a different platform because we didn't do video like this, but what we were doing was putting it in text. So you'll have all of this to read with what I'm saying and much, much more because it really takes a while to sink in and reflect on it. So first of all, I just want you to think, what might be going on in your money life? And do you feel you may need more balance, or where do you feel out of balance or out of control? Is it with the practical steps? Is it with your relationships? Is it with how you deal with money emotionally or otherwise? And I'm going to share with you 2 exercises that I do with people, and it's just to really get an understanding of where they are presently around their relationship with money. And then the money coaching work I do goes much deeper. What we're going to look at is exercise 3 of the money coaching work, and also something else that I'd learned about years ago, a friend of mine had developed. And these will all be available, as it says here, on the last page of the program. So first of all is personality, our financial personality and its sources. This I heard about from Connie Kilmark in Madison, Wisconsin. She's known as the Dr. Ruth of Money, and she made a presentation to the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education. Gosh, it had to be around 12, 15 years ago. And she went on for 90 minutes, and she talked about all these in great detail. So I've distilled it down just into its basics. And that is that the sources of our personalities begin to develop within our family life. And as we go through life, you realize that you and if you have brothers and sisters, you all treat money differently, and you see how your parents may treat money differently, and your grandparents and your aunts and uncles. But it's not just that they do it differently, how they think about it and how they behave and put themselves out into the world, but what are the emotions and the feelings that are attached to money as a result of your lived experiences with that family in that time. Your brother and sister may be older or younger, and they'll have different experiences, and it's because your parents were in a different place when they came along. So it's all a matter of how your parents have matured, how their financial situation may have improved or distressed, as how it may impact individuals as they go through the family life. But then we get out into the world, and we see our peer and social interactions affect our perceptions and values of money's larger meaning. Here you can see just a few of the examples of where this can take place and how it shows up in our relationships. Excuse me. The next is cultural and ethnic identity. In the slide, in the online version that you're going to see, the PDF with the text, she gives a great story about her parents, her mom from Italy and her dad from Norway, and their experiences at the first gift-giving holiday of Christmas, when neither of them really understood and appreciated the other's cultural identity with respect to gift giving. And it really was not a happy situation for them until they came to understand each other a little bit better. The next is religious values. There are some people who place a lot of their activity and their action around their faith and their spiritual growth, and they preach charity and sharing, but some will go so far as to use money as a sign of favor or as a sign of self-denial. So that can come into it as well. But the area that we focus most upon in the Money Coaching Institute is the physiological and neurological base of our brains, because everybody's brain, even though it's structured the same, is wired differently. And it's wired differently based upon our experiences. If people have more traumatic experiences around money, and a money trauma to a child is not necessarily a big deal to an adult, but to a child they can feel undervalued, they can feel denied, underappreciated, constricted, and it impacts how they move through the world later on in their ability to weigh facts and defer gratification, understand, tolerate risk, and so on. So it's important for people to understand that it may not often be their fault, they're the way they are, but it then becomes their responsibility to see what they can do about it. So that's a little overview of the areas that impact us. Now, how is it that we can tell what's going on? Sybil Solomon is a great friend, and she developed a deck of cards called Money Habitudes, Habits and Attitudes of Money. She came out with this, gosh, I don't know, about 15 years ago, and I still have my very first handmade deck that she let me test with clients and see how it was working, so she could make tweaks to it before they released it. It's won all sorts of awards and has been used in all sorts of ways in helping people to understand what's going on. And it's having an understanding of what is impacting how we save, spend, earn, invest, in debt, and give away money. And it's through a very simple card sort exercise, similar to solitaire. And what we want to do is find out why our habits and attitudes about money might be a point of argument or become a major issue in their life. These are the 6 habitudes that we carry around: targeted goals, security, status, selflessness, spontaneity, and free spirit. Now, they're all within us, and they may all be quiet, or they may all be active, or split. And again, just to briefly go through them, the targeted goals are people who focus on those. The money helps them to feel confident and competent to achieve their goals. And some people might see them as responsible and accomplished, or perhaps driven and too conservative. The advantages are listed on some interpretation cards. So the way you go through this is a deck of 54 cards. You read the statement on the card, and you put it into one of 3 piles. That's me, that's not me, that's sometimes me. You want to look at the cards that are in the that's me pile, count them up. If there are 12 to 16, you're good. If not, you go to the sometimes me, and you select a few more out of that are more often than not, so that you've got 12 to 16 cards. And then you sort them by the symbols on the back, and these are the symbols that you will see. So if you focus more on targeted goals, not only are there advantages of having, and this is just one I've listed on each of these slides, the cards have probably a dozen. But there are challenges as well. And if you identify with any of the challenges, on the back of that interpretation card are steps that you can take and actions you can take to bring more balance into your life. So in this case, it would be understanding money messages from your past. Those that focus on security, money helps you to feel safe and secure. Here, some people may be so conservative their money is safe, but it doesn't grow. They could be seen as thrifty and organized or miserly and cheap. It really depends on the degree to which they swing one end to the other. People who focus on status, money helps them present a positive image. They may be having money problems, but you'd never know it from looking at them. Or they are always the first to get something because it gives them a good feeling of self-esteem and boosts their ego. But it can also be a financial challenge when they keep money secrets or go into debt to maintain appearances and feel that they have to do everything for everybody. Selflessness, this is similar to the religious aspect we saw in Connie's notes, and this is somebody who feels good by giving their money to others, but there are challenges with them as well. Spontaneity, money encourages you to enjoy the moment. They want to live an exciting and fun life, but they're ashamed of spending their debt. They really don't know where the money goes. And then there's free spirit, where money's not even a priority. It's a little bit even more free than spontaneity. It's not being distracted at all by money considerations or details. And again, they lack self-confidence to make commitments in many cases. So many people are a combination, and different situations call for different responses. So having a combination of types makes one more adaptable, but it can also create some challenges as well. It's available for teens, young adults in English, and for adults in both English and Spanish, and I think she's now got them in Mandarin. And the last area is money types. And the money types is an exercise that was developed by Deborah Price, founder of the Money Coaching Institute, and my partner in business in Novato. She wrote a book back in, I think, 1990-something that was re-released called Money Magic as a paperback, and it takes you through 4 exercises that we now do as coaching in a very structured process. And we have trained now over 500 coaches around the world. Presently, we've got 2 classes, each with more than 15, which is great for us. We're finally hitting our stride and getting people trained out there and helping others to understand what are their unresolved feelings or experiences they have around money that have created their current belief system and result in patterns of behavior that may be self-limiting or self-defeating. And we're subconsciously, we are acting in ways that are maybe self-sabotaging. And as it mentions here, the quiz is only one part of the 4-part core process, the 3rd process. So these are the words that are presently on the quiz, and you go online, or you'll be able to do this on a PDF where you just click on the box next to the word that resonates with you at the time. And this is not, it's not telling you what you are or who you are. It's going to show you where you are with respect to your present relationship and your present actions and thought process around money. It breaks it down into 8 money types, and these are all archetypes. Think of Jungian archetypes. When you see the word, an image comes to mind. So we don't even need to have the words around it. You can actually see in your mind the money types based on archetypes. But just as so, we do have words that describe them, and I found great images as well. The innocent shares these characteristics. The victim often is going through these characteristics. And I know I'm flipping through it quickly because we want to get through in 15 minutes and leave it open for questions. That's why you're going to have this entire thing available for going through it on your own offline. The warrior. Great characteristics for the warrior, but the challenge for the warrior is they can become weary. They're doing everything for everyone else. They are often the ones that want to help the victim and take care of the innocent. They want to be the white knight for the innocent, the rescuer for the victim, and when they get overly weary, they move to martyr. And they move to martyr because they're doing it all and would like someone else to do it for them. There's the fool. The fool is a combination of the warrior and the innocent. They are in action quite a bit, but they're not always knowing if it's the right action or paying attention to the details. We often say that the fool would happily give you the shirt off their back, only later to realize it was their last shirt, and worse than that, they borrowed it from somebody. It wasn't even theirs to give away. The creator artist is another powerful archetype that is important and necessary for moving forward because it is the archetype of vision. But some people get so attached to their vision or their path that they deny the activities around the financial aspect, and so they don't value their work properly. They don't bill properly. They are timely. They will let things lapse. They will let themselves get talked down in price. They're often non-materialistic and detached from their money issues. The tyrant is the overactive warrior. This is a warrior who's in the game to win at all costs. To them, money is all important, that it is used to control people, circumstances, and events. There can never be enough, and they suffer from what we call chronic not enoughness. And the last one, which is an ideal money type as well, is the magician, and this is the archetype of self-understanding and awareness, of insight and inner reflection. But that alone, without action, doesn't make it. So the team of the magician, the warrior, and a nice dose of creator-artist makes a really good profile. Now, when you take the money type quiz, you may score high in those areas, and that's great. It's not that alone. It's how the others are scored as well, because they're shadows. And just as something in our background is a shadow, there are things that we try to resist, and the more we resist them, the more they persist, and the more they need our attention and can interfere with the action that needs to be taken. And they all reside within us. We do move from one type to another depending on what's going on in our life. As I mentioned, some are passive, but they can be triggered during times of stress or when someone feels anxious or fearful around money. There's an example of the warrior who will not be comfortable expressing their victim aspect because they need to show that they're powerful and in control of money. So when they learn to embrace that side, it begins to have less charge for them. So this is an example of someone who had selected words on the quiz, and this is their score. So they had some victim, they had some warrior, they had magician, and a reading like this would go a certain way, which I'm running out of time and won't do for you, but what you're going to find out is that there are resources for you. On my webpage, you can visit me there, and we just saw my virtual office. On my webpage, it's down here, and it's actually going to be a different one that I'll send you. Sorry, I didn't update this for the new name. I wanted one with 2016, so I knew where it came from. So I'm going to redo this slide before I send you this deck, Rushton. And what you'll be able to find, folks, is the Money Habitudes checklist and the Money Type quiz. Complete those, save them, send them to me, and I will respond with a personal reading just for you. And I did this for one of our members at Rotary eClub of Southwest, and let me go back to here. Now to stop sharing, and I said, is this something that goes on in your head around money? And he laughed. He wrote back and said, I'm just laughing here because not only is it the way that goes on around my money life, but just about anything in my life. How did you know that just from the words I selected? And I said, well, it's my secret. So there it is. That's a high level in 16 minutes, 24 seconds. So sorry about that.
No, not a problem. Now,
any questions?
Absolutely. So the first thing that comes to mind to me is, I look at some of the things related to deferred gratification money. I'm guessing that a lot of Rotarians or even younger siblings who have questions about it. Do you have like particular pieces of advice for young people in terms of how they begin to think about money?
Oh yeah, when we do the Money Habitudes for teens, that's very revealing. And even when we ask them to do the money type quiz and just talk to them about their money experiences, we can begin to develop a better understanding of what they may be leaning toward. You see, the other activities, the other exercises of money coaching are first the money biography. And in that, we're looking for how they're expressing their money life in free-flowing words. And it's a narrative description. We're looking for their emotions, their energy, the language, and patterns. We act as part archaeologists, see what's poking out, and then gently dust it off to see if there's anything bigger, deeper that we need to examine. And we operate as detectives. We see that there's something missing in the story, and we're curious about what is it. You remember Columbo? He'd always come up with that thing at the end of the show. There's just one more thing that I just can't get down clear, and he says it, and everybody in the room confesses to their own crimes. That's what we do. Is we see it. There's something here. There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And the next exercise is a mirroring exercise of how do your parents around money and how are you around money? So are you mirroring them? Have you developed your own patterns and beliefs that are self-actuated, which are favorable, or that are reactive, which can be unfavorable? And how is that showing up? And how is that related to the archetypes? Then we have the archetype quiz, which gives us more of a raw score. And when we take the mirror exercise and the quiz exercise together, we get a very well-developed total score of the archetypes that are present at one time. So when you see that your full energy needs to be addressed, it doesn't mean you're a fool. It just means that the energy of the fool is there, and that could be I'm feeling a little restless. I'm looking for some adventure. I'm really bored with what I'm doing. I'd like to make a change. And then you start making the change without really examining it and discover that you don't like that. So, yes, there are things that you can do with the youth, and that is to open up the discussion that money is not a taboo. Maybe how much you earn is, but it's not anything to be ashamed of. And it really is the last taboo. It's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. There are people that would rather dance naked in the street than talk about money. I'm not.
I think I would vote for talking about money on just personally on that one. I also want to make sure that our member in Santa Cruz, Brian Litico, who's part of the recording, has a chance to jump in with a question. Brian, if you have one, just feel free to unmute your mic and webcam, and we'll get you in. When we think about some of the things that people encounter when they're trying to deal with money, I mean, I figure that there's all kinds of kind of standard stories that you run up against. I mean, you actually, something many of our members may not know is that Shags volunteers a lot of time helping with the storytelling associations, all kinds of folks there. And my guess is that you've run across some cool stories from these storytellers who talk about money in some interesting fashion. Is that right?
Well, it's not so much that they talk about money in their storytelling, but their money experiences influence the stories that they tell.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the kind of personal experiences that any of us have, like become these kind of rich veins to mine as we begin to think about ways of connecting with things that may be quite difficult for us. And I think for a lot of people, there is that difficulty of how do I think about money? What would you say is a description of someone who has really properly explored his or her money life and characteristics and stuff? So someone who's kind of gone through that process and really dealt with some of these questions, how would you characterize that person who's successfully on the other side of that?
They're strong in warrior, they're strong in magician, they've got good creator artist, they have low victim and low innocent, because the innocent has already educated themselves. That's why they're a warrior. That they may have some fool, and we all need fool energy or we'd never leave the house. And that's okay. A little tyrant sometimes, because there are people that are self-tyrant if things don't go well as martyr, because those that are in that position tend to want to take care of others. So we need to help them to learn when to let go and when to let others learn for themselves and learn from their own mistakes. You mentioned just before that about stories. When we're going through a story and we see that there is, particularly with females, a situation where there's a flawed compensation system, and that is that they take in money but they don't feel comfortable having it. For one reason or another, they may spend it, they may give it away, or they may undervalue their services so that they don't earn as much as their male counterparts, or even females of their own level of education and knowledge. And it may come down to the fact that there was abuse, sexual abuse, or other abuse as a child, and the abusive adult used money to placate the abuse, and they develop a flawed compensation system. So it's unconscious. They don't know why they're resisting having money. And it's not an easy conversation to open, particularly from a male perspective, but I've had the opportunity now over the 10 years I've been coaching to do that with coaches in training. And they're amazed first that we've even touched it. I remember the first time I saw Deborah Price do this in a workshop. It was with a psychologist who had been in practice for 20-some years and was making 6 figures a year, but she was spending that much or giving it away, and it came down to that. And she said, I've been a therapist for 20 years, and in that time I've gone through my own therapy, and nobody has ever made that connection to it. In fact, Deborah was at a talk about a year ago to a group of psychologists and therapists, and they said, we don't get any training about helping people in their relationship with money because it's not part of our training. It's becoming part of their training now because not only do we train them, but there's now the Financial Therapy Association, which formed about 3 or 4 years ago and is bringing out training specifically for therapists to use, and there are therapeutic responses and therapeutic modalities that are very effective when the coaching modalities don't work, and that could include eye movement desensitization and response, as well as emotional freedom or tapping technique. And again, we use coaching modalities because we're not therapists, but it's part of the whole continuum of care. The book is good for people who are great with self-help, but most people will take it home and it ends up more as a shelf-help book. I love the sound effects here.
Awesome. Brian, let's bring you in on this. So what kind of comments or questions might you have for Shags?
I think this has been this has been extremely useful. It's there's about 1,000 personal questions that I'd have for Shags, but I'd rather not have it all videotaped and spread to the rest of the country. I'd love to talk with. I'm definitely going to be following up and talking about Shags on a professional basis. I think there's there's a ton of useful information here. And definitely, as a professional, my kids who are 10 and 7 are at the age where I want to start educating them more about money as well.
And it's tough in this materialistic world where you're bombarded by commercials telling you to buy things you don't necessarily need, but they make you crave them. Yeah.
Well, I'm really blessed. I'm married to a woman who prides herself, who has excellent taste and prides herself on being very cheap, which is unusual. So I lucked out there.
Let's call it mindful.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. When you think about that job of how to get people mindful about money, right, and doing that with children. I mean, my wife and I do not have children. We have cats, and we like it that way. But there is a young woman who we kind of pseudo-adopted. We're not biologically, financially, nor legally tied to her, but she's a great kid, and she had nowhere to turn, and there you go. So at any rate, one of the things that I learned, filling in as kind of this pseudo-dad figure, teaching her to drive, whatever else, is that questions about money became something that that I was kind of ad-libbing as I went, and one success story I'd say along those lines was at one point she's getting ready to head back to college, and I said, hey, here's a 20, use 10 for gas, and use 10 for any charity that you think really speaks to things that are important to you. And she took that really seriously, and I felt like, oh wow, I accidentally did something right on that on that front. But is that a kind of theme that you encounter with people when they talk about these different types?
Well, in her case, it may be that she learned money lessons from you. So when it comes up to a mirroring exercise to see who she is mirroring or taking on aspects from, the positive aspects we inherit from others, we want to honor that in them. And the challenging aspects that we inherit or that we've developed as a reactive pattern, we want to forgive. So it really depends. Everybody approaches this differently. It's their comfort level in expressing. Often with a money coach, it's the first time they've ever had the freedom to express without feeling that they're judged or that it's going to be talked about, because we hold it in complete confidence, and it's a very judgment-free zone.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, I think that's one of the things everybody needs is to get to those things that are so important to them in a setting where there isn't so much other baggage in the way with how they get the opportunity to talk about it.
Well, everybody comes with baggage. It's just when there are money issues involved, people tend to overpack.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, one thing for kind of Generation Xers like me that were raised by the baby boom generation is a lot of us, like me, were very well educated from a young age on finance, what is a mortgage, what is a bank account, but as far as kind of handling money and planning money and living with money, that's something that we didn't get a whole lot of instruction on. Kind of the how to be happy with money and what to watch out for. Other than very vague generalizations, that's something we really had no training with at all. And I'm encouraged that at least the present age of school children are kind of, it seems to me they're getting taught to think about that a lot more than we were.
Well, even within the financial literacy movement, it still focuses on the nuts and bolts. When it has to come down to some of the emotion as well, understanding the difference between your needs and your wants, and how to say no to yourself without feeling badly, and how to say no to others when you've already got decisions made about what's going to happen. For instance, with your kids, you might say, we've got a family trip planned to Disneyland, and this is when we're going to do it, and this is how much we want to have available. So you're out with them at some place at the store, and they see something they really want. Dad, can we have this? You say, well, we can spend the $20 on this, or we can put the $20 toward the Disneyland trip and do many more things when we get down to Anaheim. What's more important to you?
That's the kind of lesson I think that the creative approach to teaching within family relationships that a lot of people need. Speaking of needs, we actually need to end it. Apologize for that. And I'll give you the last word here in just a minute. As we always do, we like our speakers to say something that borders on the profound, perhaps. But for everybody who is watching this recording, as you scroll down past it in our meeting, you'll see the links that we provide to learn more about the kinds of things that Shags has been telling us about. Past that, you'll see an opportunity to let us know you were here. That's the attendance section, and we want you to let us know. We're not going to hold on to your address and share it with scummy, spammy people or anything like that. We just want to be able to say thanks for coming and join us at any time, because we're 24/7, and we take a lot of pride in being a club that never closes, right? You can always get a little Rotary action through us. A little farther down, there is the discuss section, and that is your opportunity to leave a comment about the things that you encountered in the meeting and in the program, and you can reply to other people's comments as well. It's one more way that we work within the eClub to get to know each other. So we hope that we will be able to see you lots in our little club. And to finish things off today, let me hand it back to Shags.
Gosh, if I could close with anything, it would be know yourself. And if you don't really know yourself, just go on that journey of exploration, because the unexamined life is one that's much more fun in living.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, everyone, thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.